Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello all. So, welcome to the fourth lecture. Now, these two lectures, so this lecture 4 and lecture 5, we will be discussing about the various norms and standards, the various guidelines that we have globally as well as in India. We will be talking about some acts, some principles, some conventions, some policies, and also some philosophies, some vision which have been adopted worldwide as well as in our country. So, first, so lecture 4 we will be starting with some global standards. So, this is titled as Inclusive Planning and Universal Design Standards in the World. Now, so these will be the concepts covered. So, this is the list. I will be just touching upon many of these. So, this is what we are going to discuss, the how things have developed, universal planning and design standards in the world, just to have an idea. Now, this is the global timeline. First, I will just present you the holistic idea and try to orient you over the time, so that, and then we will be highlighting on some of these. Like there was way back in 75, it was the Declaration on the Rights of Disabled Person by the United Nations. Then following that, there were the International Year of Disabled Person, which were celebrated. Then there was the coining of the term of universal design. Then came the seminal American Disability Act, which is a very holistic, very detailed out. So, which had been the quite a landmark event, because many of the acts globally later on followed the basic content and the structure of this ADA or the American Disability Act. Then there were the standard rules on equalization of opportunities, 7 principles of universal design, which we already discussed. The UK also came up with a very exhaustive and detailed act. Japan came up with an act, as an Asian country. Then there were the United Nations conventions on the rights of the person with disabilities. Because now while we go through this, probably you can also relate this with what we have learnt in our earlier lectures on the changing approach of disability. That how we gradually moved from what is a charity based approach to what we call a right based approach. Then the World Bank's Inclusive Cities Framework, SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, I think, which is kind of governing, not only inclusive design, but so many other things. So, SDGs, they are also very much related, particularly the goal 11 of SDG, it emphasizes upon inclusive, safe and accessible built environment and the cities. The New Urban Agenda 2016, it's a new UN Habitat, United Nations Habitat Initiative, which also stresses upon inclusive design and inclusive planning and universal design. Then there are the other strategies on rights of persons with disabilities, EU, that is the European Union, which launched this. So, this is just to give you an idea that how much of thought or what level of thought have been given globally on this topic, which is extremely important for various reasons which we have already stated. Now, since we are talking about inclusive planning and universal design, having an idea about human right is essential, because these talk about creating an environment or providing services to ensure human rights. Now, human rights are inherent, broadly speaking, to all human beings, regardless of race, gender, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion or any other status, as a matter of fact. And so are inclusive planning and universal design principles. So, they are much aligned. Now, these rights are intended to protect the fundamental freedom, provide them the or with the dignified inclusion, talks about universality, talks about individuality, equality, non-discrimination, participation and accountability. So, I think you can probably relate these principles or the similarity of these principles with the universal design and inclusive planning principles. So, because inclusive planning and universal design, they also, as we have been discussing, advocate making places of education, health, work and recreation safe, accessible and inclusive. So, these are much linked. Now, so this is how they are linked. Now, I would like to mention here about the about Henry Lefebvre, who talked about the concept of the right to the city, which has sub themes, that is participation, appropriation, that is how you appropriate the places the way you want, and the creation of value which people nourish. Like a right to everyone wants to enjoy the urban environment in their own way, and the city provides a myriad of opportunities. So, those opportunities, why do people come to city? Why do people come to city? Because they want to enjoy certain opportunities, health, education, employment, recreation, so many other things. So, these rights shouldn't be denied to anybody. So, that is what we want. The removal of barriers is required, that is remove the inequalities, provide autonomy and ensure dignity. So, this is how the human rights and right to the city are very much related. Now, human rights have been central to the United Nations since way back in 1945 charter. There was a charter, and this is roughly the timeline that you can see, that how starting from 1948, when Universal Declaration of the Human Right was done. Since then, how various countries, I am not going to read out all these things because these will be provided to you. So, this is just to give you an idea that since 1948 this journey is on. So, and these are these are inspired by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So, these have been happening. Okay, now coming to the ADA or the American Disability Act. So, these are the broad sectors, employment, which talks about two things. First is you have to have your offices or workplaces, not only offices, workplaces might include industries, factories also, offices accessible. And also we talked about, if you remember, institutional barriers. That means employment means, so if you want to ensure right to employment or right to work, that means there should be accessible workplaces as well as the policies, HR policies or the employment policies of the various institutions should be inclusive, shouldn't be denying anybody. Now, please, when we talk about what I am trying to say is that when we talk about these principles or guidelines, let us try to relate it to the different barriers that we have already learned. Then you have the public services. So, this includes any urban service. Now, just to talk here, so these public services, if you say, is not only just the health and education and recreation, right to vote, even the polling booths need to be inclusive. Let us not forget any public space, transportation, telecommunication and public accommodation. So, this is and these are what the backup laws that the ADA have, but so which are much related to this. Okay. Now, so how the Americans with the Disability Act, they are protecting the people with the disabilities. So, if just see the diversity. See the diversity of the building types. Police stations. If someone wants to go and report a case and the police station is not accessible, that is not done. So, there are every type of building needs to be accessible. I just would like to draw a parallel here, like the current guideline that we have, that we follow in India, is widely followed guideline, the harmonized guideline, which I have been talking about. So this harmonized guideline has a section on building typologies, right, which touches upon all these building types. Okay, coming back to ADA, so police stations, schools, courts, parks, workplaces, public transportation, and so these are the building types. And if you see the below, that is the wheelchair accessibility, braille signage, admittance of the service, and animals. That's very common in many of the Western countries, that people who are blind they move about with a dog, and availability of listening devices. So what we see, that all categories of disabilities or vulnerabilities are included. So all building types should be made accessible to all types of vulnerabilities. That is the message which is being given by the ADA, or the American with Disabilities Act. Okay. Now, next is the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So, this UNCRPD is a human rights treaty that protects the right of people with the disabilities, ensuring they have equal access to all rights and freedoms. It reaffirms sort of that all persons, including those with disabilities, have the same right. So, these are the dates which are given, and India is a signatory to this. So, these are the various key principles of UNCRPD that we have: respect for all, in non-discrimination, participation, equality, accessibility, gender equality, and respect to evolving categories. So, India is a signatory, and we have in our country the Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities that is responsible for all these activities. So, these are the various articles that in UNCRPD. Now, what if you see that Article 5 talks about in general equality and non-discrimination. Article 9 in general talks about accessibility to physical environment, transportation, information, communication system, equal recognition, living independently, education, work and employment, participation in political and public life. It's not that people with disability will only go to the hospital and education and work and employment and just go and for therapeutic. So they have right in every aspect. So even the court, the assembly, everything needs to be inclusive. And article last one for the implementation and the monitoring. Now we will try to again, as we are saying, the global and the Indian. So these are the global regulations or UNCRPD guidelines. Now India is a signatory to this UNCRPD, that is United Nations Conventions on right of Persons with Disabilities, and as a result now we have a Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities under Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, which is the apex department which looks after all these things. And so, and they also have this RPWD Act, or Right to Person with Disability 2016 Act. So, our act, our articles, our sections are very much aligned to this. So, in the lecture 5, when we talk about this RPWD Act, we will try to relate it with this UNCRPD, that these sections. Okay. Now, coming to SDGs. So, the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So, these are the global goals, a set of 17 goals adopted by the United Nations in 2015 to address global challenges and promote sustainable development by 2030. So, that is the background. So, that is nothing specific about inclusive design or inclusive planning and universal design, but that is the overall scenario. Now, as you can see, I'm sure all of you are aware of this nowadays, that these goals are aimed to end poverty, hunger, improve health and education, reduce inequalities, tackle climate changes and protect the planet. So, now these are interconnected concepts which focus on inclusivity and sustainability. Now, as we know that the inclusive design aims to create product and environment that are usable by all people regardless of abilities. So, by incorporating the universal design principles, into the implementation of SDGs, we can come up with solutions which are accessible to everyone. If we just try to draw parallels that these are the 17 SDGs which talks about leaving no one behind. Now this leaving no one behind or LNOB is a core principle of this 2030 agenda for sustainable development, aiming to ensure inclusive and equitable outcome for all, not just who are already well off, not just who are already established, but for all. So that is the now universal design is a very effective tool to operationalize the SDGs. Now let us see how. Okay, so goal number 1. Let us so these are some of the goals which are linked to the SDGs. So which I have listed down here. So the first one says no poverty. SDG 1 says no poverty. So if we give accessible services to reduce exclusion to schools and sources of employment, there is definitely an improvement in the overall quality of life of people. They can educate themselves and they can earn. It talks about good health, so inclusive health system and facilities. Now why I am saying facilities here and health system here and not just hospitals? Because nowadays health is so wide. I mean health facilities are available in different ways. It's not always you have to walk down to the hospital or travel to the hospital to be treated. You can have telemedicine, you can have video conferencing. It is a global united world now. It's a united globe now. So that's why. Even the telemedicine needs to be accessible. The video conferencing facilities are to be made accessible. So that's how universal design principles are related to good health, quality education, accessible schools and learning materials, gender equality, safe and inclusive public spaces for women, clean water and sanitation. We talk about the accessible toilets and wash services. What is wash? Water, sanitation and health. So accessible wash. So clean water and sanitation, that is the SDG 6, is being linked to the access to the providing accessible toilets. Now accessible toilets should be everywhere, in public places also. The public toilets also need to be accessible. It's not that only in the private malls or the or hospitals or schools they would have, or offices, they would make their toilets accessible. But when you are accessing a paid toilet, on the street, they also need to be accessible. Now Now when we talk about sanitation, another important point just want to highlight here. Once I was talking with a few school children, girls school children. So they, so few of them were having some kind of impairment. So they said that the toilet is made as per the standards, but they were not clean. They were not maintained. The walls are soiled. So what's happening? They cannot take the support of the walls while walking. So everything is important. Creating an accessible infrastructure is important, and maintaining the accessible infrastructure is important if you want to achieve these SDGs. Decent work, barrier-free workplace and transport, infrastructure, inclusive innovation and urban development, and reduced inequality finally. So that's the overall motto. So these are how your SDG aligns with the universal principles. Now next, so this is what I wanted to highlight, that leave no one behind. 2030 agenda, eradicate poverty, end discrimination, educate people, remove gender bias and systematic inclusion, intergenerational poverty. Next is the United Nations Disability Inclusion Strategy. So this is provides the foundation for all sorts of sustainable and transformative progress on disability inclusion through few identified pillars. Now this is not directly related to design standards and what architects can do probably, but yes, these are indirectly related, like leadership, inclusiveness, programming, organizational culture, which finally trickle down to formation of these inclusive design what I would say actionable points. Like if you want to implement something on ground, there has to be a leadership and strategic and managerial level intervention. If you want to do proper crowd management, as you have seen that this crowd is a major psychological barrier, so you have to do proper programming. If you want to have include people in the in your workforce, so that you reduce the dependent population, what we discussed, and also achieve towards the global goal of no poverty, you have to have an organizational structure which promotes inclusion. So it's not that they are so they have a overarching effect on the inclusive design. Yes. Now this is global age-friendly cities. Now we have till now been talking about disability, just disability. But if you remember the first slide that we discussed on the lecture 1, that who are we doing? I mean the 4 questions. You remember the for who we do, why do we do, how do we do, and what we do. So when we were talking that for whom do we do, so elderly people and children, they were also included. So this one, the global age-friendly cities is a guide. It's a guide that is prepared by WHO way back in 2007. So this talks about the requirement of the aging population. Just to tell you that world population is aging. So within 2050, a significant number of people will be above 60 years and 65 years of age. So what does that mean? We have to take the necessary steps today so that we can prepare for that situation, we can prepare for that scenario when we have already created an environment where the majority of the population living on the earth at that point of time can productively participate, because otherwise who will work? They will be working. So I mean you have to then include them as treat them not as a dependent population, but a major chunk of the population. So considering this this increasing the upper limit of age, life expectancy is increasing. So we really have to plan for the elderly people. So the global age-friendly cities talks about these aspects, that is age-friendly housing. Charity begins at home always. So if an elderly, think about an elderly couple living. So they need to have every facilities in the house. They need to have an accessible washroom. They need to have the accessible solid waste disposal system. They need to have a kitchen which might be wheelchair accessible. They need to have maybe alarm system by which they can call the neighborhood welfare association if something is wrong. So housing, outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation, employment, because as I said that now in the current scenario, if you see in India particularly with a high demographic dividend, the number of the dependent population might be less. But if with the increasing age, there will be more number of people. So they will require to work. So as a result, the employment will become a very what I would say important aspect of these age-friendly cities. Health services, of course, and other intangible factors which are absolutely important, that is respect and inclusion, social participation, and communication and information. Because you have to, we are going online, the world is going online. I mean, I am addressing to all of you online. So, communication information will be there digitally, will be more in the years to come. So, and that communication and information system should be user friendly, should not cut off or segregate a group of elderly people because they cannot cope up with the technology. So the technology need to be user friendly. A few just images to show that, which gives you an idea that the age friendly outdoor spaces, clean environment, green space, age friendly pavement, safe crossing, clean public toilets, age friendly transportation. So, this frequency and reliability, availability of public transport, priority sitting for older people, this is there in many places. Age friendly social inclusion, social participation is important. I mean, if we were talking about, the social barrier or stigma. So, you are old, so stay out of it. You are old, you cannot do it. You are old, so you rest, relax. Probably that's not the ideal, approach. So, age friendly social participation and inclusion is required. Age friendly housing, I think we talked this. And okay, one aspect that I want to mention here is there is the community integration. Now, community integration means that it's not that a housing that is to be accessible. The spaces outside. We talk about, whenever we talk about housing, we talk about housing and community planning. So, how the house interacts with the community. Our next group, our children, our kids, the child friendly cities. So, UNICEF 2018, they talk about few principles. Right to be valued. See, there's some rights, right to be valued, right to be heard, right to the social service, right to be safe, right to family life, play and leisure. So, other than providing safety and security, it is important that you listen to them. These are social aspects, might not be, having a direct implication on physical design, but yes, they are important, because as I said that everything finally trickle down to the space that you create. So, safe spaces, child friendly spaces, flexible spaces, spaces which are compatible with their body shape, body size. We talked about the anthropometry, the principle, the seventh principle of universal design, that is the safe, the access to the approach and proper approach and space and approach. So, now we are coming to the end, that is how the changing approach towards visibility, that how we have moved from a charity based model, just to recap, to the right based model. As you can see that the age friendly principles, the child friendly principles, they are all talking about the physical as well as social, institutional, all types of barriers. So, what we discussed in our lecture 2, that different types of lecture 2 and lecture 1, the different types of barriers, they are all to be addressed if you want to create an inclusive society. A timeline of major global inclusive policies. So, these will be provided additionally as reference material, some of the important ones as in the form of PDF documents will be provided in the form of documents, additional study materials which can be referred for information. And I am very proud to say that India is a signatory to many of these declarations or strategies or conventions, and that is why what we are going to discuss in the next lecture, that what India has done, how where we stand today, what have been our achievement in terms of this designing these guidelines and statutes. Some references which I have used for developing these slides.